up? It's the lunch lady, and I dumpstered a bunch of zucchinis, and I love to make vegetable cakes and breads, so I'm gonna make a zucchini bread that's gonna be a little bit like a cake because I'm using banana in place of sugar and egg, and so it'll be sweet and moist like a cake, but also hearty and nutritious and low in sugar like a bread. You'll want something like a 9 by 5 inch loaf pan, or this here 8 by 6 inch pan. I'm using this all-purpose gluten-free flour and baking powder, not to be confused with its rival baking soda, but we're going to be using both of them in this recipe. And I'm going to put all of my dry ingredients in my big bowl and my wet ingredients in my little bowl, because I'm going to put the wet ingredients in with the dry, so they'll all need the bigger space in there. First, you'll put in your 1 3/4 cups flour and your 1 teaspoon of baking powder, but only 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. And I'm gonna use this fancy ground Himalayan pink salt, even though it does not supply iodide, a necessary nutrient. Just go ahead and put a 1/2 teaspoon of that salt in there. And I'm putting in 1 1/2 teaspoons of cinnamon. And I'm gonna whip out my little whisk, though I do feel like I'm being watched. But if you are only using one hand, you can stir and stir and spin, and eventually your bowl is going to start spinning on its own like it's an automatic mixer. Or else, if you're not making a video holding your camera with one hand, you could put it down and use 2 hands. And to make this vegan or plant-based, I'm going to be using margarine. Do people still even use the word margarine anymore? I feel like all products that used to be margarine are called vegetable oil spread now, so maybe that's actually a deceased word in the English language, but I'm still using it. But anyways, we'll put in 1/2 cup of margarine or vegetable oil spread. And that's going into the smaller wet ingredients bowl now. And I'm getting it all out of my cup measure using my squeegula. And I've put in a couple bananas, the riper the better. Next, you'll add 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. And then I'll mush it all up with my squeegula. But don't worry, you can use 2 hands to do this. Now would you look at that? I got it all nice and mushed up for you. Now we're gonna add our wet ingredients into our dry ingredients by making a little ditch for them and slowly pouring them in while you stir. Now you've gotta get it all mixed up together, but don't over mix it or your bread will be too dense. And this thoroughness is an OCD of mine that's hard to stop myself from doing. Now that I've over mixed my dough, it's time to add the guest of honor, the zucchini. So you'll need 1 1/2 cups of grated zucchini, which takes about 2 medium-sized zucchinis to create. And this is obviously the most labor-intensive part of the whole recipe. If you want a less moist bread, you can use a higher setting grater for bigger chunks, but I'm using a finer grater for a moister bread. Now it's time to get all that zucchini mixed in with the dough. Now I'll preheat my oven for 350 degrees while I put it into the pan. I've got it all nicely poured into my little pan now, and I'm smoothing it over with my squeegula so it cooks evenly and is nice and smooth on top. Now in it goes on the bottom rack. It's time to take it out. Let's see how it did. I think that a mistake I did was I turned off the oven after it was done baking, and that caused it to collapse like this. I should have shown you the progress while it was actually in there baking, because it had gotten really raised and puffed up. So maybe don't leave it in to get the extra heat after it's done its time. But that's alright, it's still going to taste good, yay!